The Star Dreadnought classes, or more commonly known as Super Star Destroyers, were massive warships used by several galactic factions during the course of Star Wars history. However, during the First Galactic Empire's reign, various classes were designed to bolster the vast Imperial Navy. Much larger than the more common Imperial Star Destroyer classes, all Star Dreadnought classes could act as command ships, and even some were large enough to act as a space station. This video focuses specifically on the Imperial Star Dreadnought classes from Star Wars Legends publications, including some which later went on to serve the Dark Empire and the Imperial Remnant. Although the Mandator class Star Dreadnought had been developed by QAT Drive Yards 2 decades before the Clone Wars, the Galactic Empire introduced a small number of Mandator class 3 Dreadnoughts to supplement the Imperial Navy 19 years before the Battle of Yavin. Out of the 7 classes of dreadnoughts used by the Empire, the Mandator Class 3 was the 4th longest dreadnought at a length of 12,000 meters long. However, it was still around 7 meters longer than the largest Imperial Star Destroyer class. One of the most noticeable features of the Mandator Class 3 was its huge reactor core, which created a ventral protrusion as a result. The dreadnought was specifically designed to be a weapons platform base, and was both longer and heavily armed than its Mandator class predecessors for the Galactic Republic. But compared to several other classes of Imperial dreadnought, its armaments consisted of far less numbers of turbo laser batteries and ion cannons. The Mandator Class 3's crew consisted of a relatively small number of 28,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew, and also the smallest number of stormtroopers at 8,000 compared to all other classes of dreadnought. Although the Galactic Empire used the Mandator class in the lead up to the Galactic Civil War to supplement its Imperial Navy complement, it was later used by the reborn Palpatine's Dark Empire in 10 ABY. With a similar appearance to the Executor Class Dreadnought, the Assertor Class Dreadnought had a sharp arrowhead-shaped hull and stood at a staggering 15,000 meters long to completely eclipse any Star Destroyer classes within the Imperial fleet. It was the joint 3rd longest dreadnought commissioned by the Empire during its reign. At a cost of 1.1 billion credits, it was introduced around 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, and was a formidable Imperial warship. The Assertor class held a huge amount of quad heavy turbo laser batteries and ion cannons on its port, starboard, dorsal and ventral superstructure. Indeed, it was constructed as a fortress warship, and a powerful rival in terms of its armaments and reactor core to the Executor class Dreadnought. Introduced into the Imperial Navy 2 years before the Empire's defeat at Yavin 4, the vessel served during the Galactic Civil War as a command ship, but frequently acted as a sector command ship. Several of this dreadnought type were deployed along the border between the Outer Rim and the Mid-Rim territories to protect battle groups against rebel activity alongside various other Imperial vessels. Its crew consisted of 125,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew to operate the vessel, which was significantly smaller than some of the other dreadnought classes, notably the Executor. It carried a medium number of starfighters, vehicles and shuttles compared to other vessels in its class. However, its powerful number of armaments more than made up for that. The ventral part of the ship protrudes a prominent ridge leading up to the stern, containing several guns as well as the command bridge. The appearance to the ridge follows a similar design to the Mandator and the Bellator class dreadnoughts. The 2 most notable vessels for this class were named the Assertor and the Wrath, and the ships were featured in the Essential Guide to Warfare. 5 months after the Battle of Yavin, the first Executor class dreadnought emerged from QAT Drive Yards at Fondor. At a length of 19 meters long, it was the largest dreadnought vessel of its time during the Galactic Civil War and used as a command ship. The dagger-shaped vessel held a huge crew of 784,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew, with around 150,000 stormtroopers, putting the vessel in the class of a space station. Although the recognizable command bridge was positioned around the ship's stern, it possessed a gigantic cityscape along its ventral superstructure, which set the dreadnought's appearance aside from previous designs. The Executor class's armaments were also impressive, totaling up to 5,000 weapon emplacements, which consisted of 2,000 turbo lasers and 2,000 ion cannons, as well as 1,000 other weapon types to ensure it was the most powerful dreadnought in the Imperial Navy in 0 ABY. However, despite all of its formidable firepower, the majority of its turbo lasers and cannons was centrally placed, and the dreadnought's ventral side and aft were relatively undefended, relying upon starfighters to provide defensive cover to its main weaponry blind spots. Indeed, at the Battle of Endor, this was how the Rebel Alliance attacked the ship in order to weaken its shields and engines. Another of its weaknesses was the cityscape possessed several trenches, allowing starfighters to attack once the dreadnought's shields were down. This left it vulnerable to trench-run tactics and ultimately led to the Executor's destruction at Endor. The Bellator class dreadnought was introduced into the Imperial Navy 3 years after the Battle of Yavin and was the smallest design at 7,200 metres in length compared to its predecessors, which were mainly 2 or 3 times its length. The Bellator's design was very similar to the aging Mandator series, however it was built to possess a greater speed at 60 megalight per hour. Although its armaments were lighter than much larger dreadnought classes, the Bellator class still held an impressive array of heavy dual-turbo lasers and heavy ion cannons. Also very similar to other classes, it was marked with a ridge structure in front of its command tower and required a maximum of 88,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew to operate the vessel. In the years that followed the Galactic Empire's grip on the galaxy, the New Republic commandeered some of these vessels, and also the reborn Palpatine had several as part of his Dark Empire fleet at the planet Biss. The Vengeance class was introduced into the Kuat drive yards sometime after 4 ABY and prior to the Battle of Endor. Because it was based upon the standard Executor Class design, the new Dreadnought class matched its length at around 19,000 metres long. However, the Vengeance class's frame was designed with a narrow build, making it sword-like in comparison to the Executor's dagger-shaped appearance. The Vengeance class Dreadnought was also used as a fleet command ship, as well as possessing a space station class. The ship's bridge design was extensive and covered most of the command tower. Unlike most other Kuat drive yard warship classes, the command bridge was located on a small square bridge near the stern of the ship. Its crew, armaments and starfighter complement were also similar to the Executor class, although it did not house the cityscape structures of its predecessor. A High Inquisitor and Dark Jedi known as Jerrick was given command of the Vengeance class after its construction during 3 ABY, while Jerrick donated his Imperial class Star Destroyer Vengeance 2 to Admiral Ozzel's Death Squadron while awaiting the Dreadnought's vessel to be completed. After Jerrick's death in 5 ABY, the Vengeance class Dreadnought joined the Dark Empire's battle group at Biss. Shortly after the Battle of Endor, the Eclipse class Dreadnought was manufactured by Kuat drive yards as a new generation of Dreadnought alongside the Sovereign class Dreadnought. However, the Eclipse boasted the most powerful weaponry ever constructed for a warship. At a length of 17,500 metres, it was another gigantic vessel, and although it was 1,500 metres shorter than an Executor class, the Eclipse had a superstructure which was excessively wider and deeper compared to its predecessors. Although this Dreadnought class held a strong level of heavy laser cannons and turbo lasers, its main weapon situated at the bow of the vessel was its axial super laser, which held the capability to destroy another Star Dreadnought with one blast. Another use would have been to penetrate planetary shields and destroy rebellious towns or cities. Additionally, it held gravity well projectors used by the Interdictor class Star Destroyer. The Eclipse class was superior to virtually all Star Dreadnoughts at the time of its creation, due to its extremely strong shields, hyperdrive and sublight engines. The vessel's shields gave it the capability to ram other ships with impressive ease. On board was 780,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew, with an additional 150,000 stormtroopers. The Eclipse class could also carry 600 TIE interceptors, 96 TIE bombers, which were divided into 58 squadrons, as well as a huge amount of ground force transports. Alongside its sister ship, the Eclipse II, its construction began early in the Galactic Civil War around 0 ABY. The ship's class, alongside the Star Dreadnought called the Sovereign class, was planned to transform naval combat and instill the Imperial Navy's authority for many years. The reborn Palpatine's Dark Empire in 10 ABY used an Eclipse class Dreadnought as its flagship. In the same period as the early construction stages of the Eclipse class, the Sovereign class Super Star Destroyer, as it was known in the Dark Empire sourcebook, was a planned Dreadnought class at the request of Emperor Palpatine, who wished the Galactic Empire to build an entire fleet of this type of vessel. This class was another behemoth of a vessel, at a length of 15,000 metres long, and the joint third longest Dreadnought alongside the Assertor Class. It also required a huge 600,000 officers, pilots and enlisted crew, and 4,000 gunners, and even its skeleton crew required 86,000. The Sovereign class's complement matched the Eclipse classes at 600 TIE interceptors, 96 TIE bombers, as well as the same amount of ground force transports. However, none of the Sovereign class Dreadnoughts ever completed their construction, and the Eclipse class was first released into service despite its larger size. That's all for today. I hope you liked the rundown of Imperial Star Dreadnought classes. For more Imperial Explained videos, please give a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and as always, long live the Empire.